I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hello, everyone. I am Constitutional Catherine here with Liberty Lori, and welcome to week 39 of our new Constitution podcast, Restore Freedom Weekly. Thank you for joining us today. Not too sure I like this new program because I can't switch any of the layouts very easily, but there we go. It's almost like you can see me, just not if you're on a phone, because we're still going to be super teeny tiny. All right, with that being said, if I do have any kind of cutting out or any kind of technical issues today, please keep in mind that although we should be in the safe zone, at least for now, we do have Hurricane Ian heading this way, so we could see some interruptions in power or internet, and just wanted to let you guys know that we'll do whatever we can to get back online and finish if that is the case. But again, since we are getting more and more of you on the different platforms jumping on board as we get rolling here, I want to say thank you for joining us and welcome to this week's episode of Restore Freedom Weekly. Thank you, Mr. Henry on YouTube, for the compliment. Let's see. Okay, so he's throwing me off. I'm blushing, 11 years of marriage, and I guess he could still make me blush with a compliment. But all right, so our topic today is the Reproductive Freedom Petition. What does it really say? Does it violate the Constitution? So the main topic, a little bit more in depth, again, is that reproductive freedom for all. That's the name of the petition. And that is a proposal to amend the state of Michigan's Constitution. Now, for just a second, I'm going to have you pause on that thought. And if you do not live in Michigan, you're going to want to hear this anyway. First of all, we all know by now, if you don't, then you've been living under a rock, but we all know by now that the United States Supreme Court overturned the prior abortion cases and their precedent. So Roe v. Wade is no more, Casey v. Planned Parenthood no more, etc. And we now have the Dobbs case. So it essentially took the abortion regulation decision and threw it back onto the states because the Supreme Court justices can't figure out how to read the full Constitution, but hey, I guess they were trying. So that decision now rests with the states and the state legislatures. And sometimes, I guess, if you have a state amendment process that you could do through amendment petition, like in Michigan. Florida does not do that. Citizens cannot create an initiative petition in all the same ways that you can in Michigan, for example. But in Michigan, you can. And so this was an initiative petition, and it was grossly full of errors, like things that you would not even believe that an adult typed. But hey, the Michigan Supreme Court overruled essentially all the challenges that were made to the petition and said, well, it's okay that it's a big pile of garbage. We're going to go ahead and let it on the November ballot. So if you live in Michigan, it is going to be on your November ballot. And regardless of what your preconceived notions about abortion or about reproductive freedom or anything are, you're still going to want to know the truth and the facts about what this petition really says, what it does, what are the implications and the impacts. If you don't live in Michigan, though, this is going to be just as important to you because if for nothing else, let's think of that somewhat recently passed Mississippi law that banned any kind of abortion after 15 weeks, barring, I think, the imminent threat of danger to the life of the mother. But anyway, that law that was passed fairly recently in the state of Mississippi, you might think, oh, well, that's just a law and it's in the state of Mississippi. I live in Texas or California or whatever. What does that possibly have to do with me? Well, that statute led to the United States Supreme Court decision, Dobbs, that overruled Roe v. Wade. So that's a great example of how something on this serious of a topic can impact what's happening to you in a totally different state. But let's also look at, this is an election year and things are happening. Policy is transient from state to state and influencing one state or another from your state or a neighboring state in more ways than it ever has before. We have social media, we have instant ways of getting news and information and communication all across the country, all across the world. And it's an election year, and things that happen in really in any state can affect the country. But things that happen in key states like New York, California, Florida, Michigan, Texas, those are states that really heavily impact what's going on in every state all across the country. So that's why today's topic is important. But again, we're not just talking about what does it say. We're going to talk about what does this particular wording, what does it mean for women? What would this amendment mean for children or for men, for families? How does it fit in the rest of the Michigan State Constitution? If it's adopted into the Michigan Constitution, would it be enforceable? Does it violate the U.S. Constitution? Today's show is designed to get you the facts, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth on this issue before you go to the polls in November. So I want to start, first of all, with a word from the sponsor of the petition, which is my mind went blank, Reproductive Freedom for All. And this is what it says. And this is literally, if you just do a quick Google search for Proposal 3 in Michigan, this is the first hit that you'll find. Prop 3 is a common sense, middle ground solution to restore our rights under Roe. Yes on 3. And you'll be given the link to that information on Thursday's Constitution segment recap document, as well as it may also end up in the Friday's Freedom Fighting Tools, but at any event, you'll have direct access to that. I just want a few keywords to jump out at you. Common sense, middle ground, and of course, restore our rights. That's clearly going to be something that I focus on. But before we jump into analyzing those key things, there's news that my understanding is it hit email inboxes from the Epoch Times today. At least the story broke with Epoch Times today. But there was an issue that happened just 1 week ago in Lake Odessa, Michigan. If any of you are from Michigan, but you don't necessarily know the greater Grand Rapids area very well, that would be, I think it's still Ionia County, now that I think about it. It's close to Ionia County. It's close to Belding and Grand Rapids, and it's in an area that, let me just say, it's not very big. The biggest metropolitan area would be Grand Rapids, but you could say it's between Grand Rapids and Lansing. And a very small community, rural community. A lot of typical conservative values are held throughout the whole community. But regardless of that, there was an elderly woman who was working in association with the Right to Life for Michigan, and just going door to door with some pamphlets telling people about Proposal 3, educating them. And this was just 1 week ago today in Lake Odessa, Michigan. This elderly woman, while she was campaigning, this man, he was a pro-abortion advocate, I guess. And so they had some sort of verbal disagreement, and she ends up getting shot in the back while going door to door. This elderly woman simply trying to tell literally her neighbors, she's in her own community, she's trying to tell her neighbors about what's in Proposal 3, and this guy shoots her in the back. Does that not tell you the kind of crazy that might be on the other side of this issue? Lori, had you heard of that one yet?
No, I hadn't.
And my husband says, not a gentleman. You're right. I was being a little facetious on that point, I guess. But monster is what I would say. But I didn't want to spoil the punchline, I guess, to the news delivery on that. At any rate, so today's true or false question, which you can still go out to, and this is where I'm going to forget, but we have our Tuesday true or false question that posts at 10 a.m. on Tuesdays on this week's topic. You can go answer that poll. If you go to our website, you can go to the updates tab and you'll see that poll there. You can answer it without even having any kind of sign in, any kind of Google account or anything like that. Or if you like to do the polls that are on LinkedIn, where this video is live streaming now, or to the YouTube community side of things, where this video is also streaming now. You can go to Twitter, where the video is also live streaming now. You can go to Truth Social, where we'll have a link to the video later. Lori, where am I forgetting that there's Telegram? You can do this poll on Telegram. There might be a couple others that you could do this poll at, but basically any social media that we're on, if they have the ability to do polling, we'll do a true or false question of the day on Tuesdays there at 10 a.m. So make sure to go on there and answer that. Show everyone you know your stuff, and then listen to the episode, and then go ahead and go back at 10 p.m. to see how many people answered the question, if it's a social media platform that does share that with you, and to see maybe how many people got it right, and to see what the answer is in case you happen to have forgotten the topic for today. So today's question on true or false is, under Proposal 3, the proposal to amend the Michigan Constitution in November 2022, which would take in effect somewhere around December 18th, if it does receive enough votes by the state of Michigan voters. But under Proposal 3, an 11-year-old child could get an abortion, sterilization, contraceptive, or related care without a parent's knowledge or consent. Is that true or false? So again, one last thing before we really dive into this topic is the ACLU of Michigan. So also in a, actually this was in the Epoch Times article talking about the woman getting shot. There was some commenting from the ACLU of Michigan director, and this is what she had to say. The majority of Michiganders know that abortion is health care. That struck me. That really struck me, because that has been basically one of the conservative arguments against abortion all this time, because abortion, as it's been said, abortion's not health care. And generally speaking, at least as far as I recall, those that are on the pro-choice, pro-abortion side of things have not really come out and screamed, oh yes, abortion is healthcare and everyone knows it. They've just kind of skirted the issue and said that abortion is essential and things like that. So that's really strange to me that this woman not only comes out and says that, the ACLU director of Michigan, but she says the majority of Michiganders know that abortion is healthcare. And then she goes on to say, the Supreme Court's overturn of Roe v. Wade will not take away the rights and freedoms of people in Michigan to determine if and when they become a parent. That's also something that we should circle back to. Lori, I don't know if you want to make a note, because I realized I didn't necessarily make myself a note to circle back to that thought, let alone the 3 key words I wanted to focus on from the petition's own website. Last thought from this ACLU of Michigan director. She said, "We will not allow forced pregnancy in our state, nor will we stand by as the devastating impacts of post-Roe world disproportionately impact people of color and LGBT communities." I'm going to go ahead and just throw out this, even though we didn't give you all the basics and we didn't give you all the understanding of what this petition really would do. But how on earth is it disproportionately impacting people of color and LGBT communities? In fact, with transgenderism, I'm not sure what abortion has to do with that directly at all. I would think there'd be some issues with being able to conceive a child if you're switching from one gender to another. But that's someone's choice that they're doing to take that surgery. And LGBT communities and people of color, I'm not sure what we're saying about that. That if you're lesbian, gay, bisexual, or Black, Hispanic, Native American, whatever the term is that's meant by this statement here, then you're somehow needing abortion more. I'd love to hear the actual direct commenting or reasoning behind that. But okay, so here's the thing. It is a little bit overwhelming, but let me put it this way. I asked somebody very intelligent recently if they could help me get out of a brain fog in preparing for today's episode, and kind of just give me the, like, if I'm a 3rd grader, how would you tell me what is in this? And this person, who is very well qualified to answer a question like that, basically struggled at its complexity, because there's so much in there and it feels overwhelming. And it's probably also, a lot about what's in there, but not explicitly written in there. What are the implications? But I want to make some real emphasis today, because that's someone who I think, whose confidence in understanding the law and the Constitution and petitions has grown exponentially in the last couple of years. I can only imagine what an average person who's not working every day on these kinds of issues must feel when they're looking at a petition like this and they're going, well, this this group says this, or that news station says that. My friend at church says this, but my coworker says that, and I don't really know how to sort this all out. And these petitions are, they have this page and this page and this page, and sometimes 4, 5, 6 pages, right? Let me put this into context. I have a 3rd grade student. I have raised 3 other 3rd grade students. And my current 3rd grader, my prior 3rd graders, they could certainly, and I taught in a school. I didn't teach, well, I taught restorative justice in a school. And I worked daily with 3rd graders. My office was in the 3rd grade hallway. I spent a lot of time with 3rd graders. They can read things that are 321 words. Guess what? This petition, the whole chunk of what it would be adding to the Michigan State Constitution, if it's adopted, is literally only adding 321 words. For such a huge topic, you would think it would be more. It's only 2,208 characters. Of course, that's after it's fixed, since, let me just say that a lot of run-on words were in there. And I say run-on words, and you're going to think of something that is far less accurate than what this really contained. Some of what the lawsuits were and challenges, legal challenges to this petition, making it on the ballot, were things where you have entire lines of text that literally have no spaces or punctuation or proper grammar whatsoever, where you could have easily 21 words all in one sentence. I mean, all in one word, no spaces. 127 characters on average, just squished together in these oopses. Clearly, the people that are putting together this petition care so much about women's health that they don't even care enough to use spell check, proofreading, perhaps a third grader to read it for them. At any rate, but we'll see what they're allowed to do for these third graders. So this is a constitutional amendment too, and this is from their header. This is what you'll actually see on the ballot if you're in Michigan voting in November. It's a constitutional amendment to establish a new right to reproductive freedom, including the right to make and carry out all decisions about pregnancy, such as prenatal care, childbirth, postpartum care, contraception, sterilization, abortion, miscarriage management, and infertility. Allow the state to prohibit abortion after fetal viability unless needed to protect a patient's life or physical or mental health. Forbid state discrimination in enforcement of this right. Prohibit prosecution of an individual or a person helping a pregnant individual for exercising rights established by this amendment. And invalidate all state laws that conflict with this amendment. Okay, so that sounds like a lot, but there's still not a whole lot of text, okay? So I will give to you guys on Thursday and possibly again on Friday as part of a freedom fighting tool, the actual full language, all, what did I say, 321 words of this change. But there's going to be some specific wording that we're going to focus on today. And something I want to point out to you is that there's 5 sections. The 4th section provides the only definition section in here, and the only 2 words defined, I'll just read to you in full. So they talk about a compelling state interest. A state interest is compelling only if it is for the limited purpose of protecting the health of an individual seeking care, consistent with accepted clinical standards of practice and evidence-based medicine, and does not infringe on that individual's autonomous decision-making. I'm sorry, I started thinking of COVID protocols when reading that. Silly me, that's not what they mean there. Fetal viability. The point in pregnancy when, in the professional judgment of an attending healthcare professional, terms we need to come back to, which are not defined, and based on the particular facts of the case, there is a significant likelihood of the fetus's sustained survival outside of the uterus without the application of extraordinary medical measures. Wow. There's a lot of descriptive words there. So I hope I will actually come back to that actually, but so the rest of the petition, the length of it really is in the fact that it says, there's a part in there that says, provisions of existing constitution altered or abrogated by the proposal if adopted. And below that, this petition claims to modify 16 provisions of the Michigan State Constitution, but says not one word as to how that would be. There's no strike-through language to show something is completely being stricken. There's no indication of how those provisions will be modified. But these are the ones that they're saying is going to be modified, okay, or are going to be modified. Article 1, Declaration of Rights. You have Section 2 for equal protection, Section 23, unenumerated rights, Section 27 on human embryo and embryonic stem cell research. That's interesting. I guess I'm just going to comment there for a brief moment to say, I don't remember hearing anything about stem cell research in the petition language. And I know I didn't read the whole petition language for you, but you might have already, and you'll have access to it either through the state's website right now or through our posting in our video on Thursday. But I read to you the wording that will actually be on the ballot. I don't seem to recall anything about stem cell research, but anyway. Article 3, General Government, Section 7, which is common law and statutes will remain in force and effect. That's interesting. Article 4 on the legislative branch, and that entails 3 sections. Let me see here. Okay. I notice I put a little note for myself in the wrong section, so I'll just I'm going to take a second here just to bring that down to the appropriate place because it is definitely something that we will need to talk about. Okay. So in the legislative branch, you have Section 1, which is literally all about legislative power. Section 31, General Appropriations Bills. I don't remember hearing about that in the summary or in the text of this amendment. Section 51, Public Health and General Welfare. Then Article 5 for the executive branch, you have the section on executive power and the budget. Article 6, you have supposedly modifications to the judicial branch in Section 1, judicial power, and Section 28, administrative action. Section 8, they reference sections 5, 6, and 7, Article 8, sections 5, 6, and 7, they're saying will be amended, and that's just dealing with the controlling boards for the University of Michigan, Michigan State University, Wayne State University, other institutions of higher education, and community colleges. Neffy did not like that at all. In case those of you were wondering what that sound was, that would be Liberty Lori's dog freaking out about how horrible this is and how confusing it could be. Article 9, finance and taxation. That's literally all Article 9 is about. And they're saying this directly impacts Section 17 on payments from the state treasury. Interesting. I don't recall that being forthcoming in the actual language. Article 11, public officers and employment. Section 5 is what they're saying would be changed regarding classified state civil service, and presumably it's just the portions on appointments, promotions, demotions, or removals, and appropriations. So, okay, that's the text, that's what's in it. What does this mean for women, though? Well, it means on-demand abortion, sterilization, contraception, and the whole lot of it, okay? It also means, though, no regulation of these procedures is allowed. Now, let's think about this. I'm hoping that you're stumbling across this podcast on one of the podcasting platforms or on social media live streaming now, and you're hearing this going, oh my gosh, this is a conservative load of garbage. I'm totally for abortion rights. I want you to listen to this just as much as those who I know are probably more likely listening to this. There is, if this amendment is brought in, if it's adopted in just over a month, this will mean no regulation of any of these procedures is allowed, even for the health of women. No licensed physician is needed for any of these procedures: abortion, sterilization, contraception, any of it. Gender modification surgeries, whatever. No licensed physician is needed to perform these procedures. No hospital facility or admitting privileges are required. Does that really sound like it's in the benefit of women? No requirement to educate women on pregnancy in general, the fetal development stage of their unborn child at that time, the option to see an ultrasound or hear the baby's heartbeat. In fact, most, if not all, of these providers actually tell women that it's just a clump of cells that is going to be painless, relatively painless to extract. Counseling women into abortion or sterilization by unlicensed individuals and non-therapists rather than by attending healthcare professionals. So let me put it this way. Okay, so this amendment, what this is going to mean is you can have counseling for women, coaching them into abortion, which cannot be undone. Sterilization cannot be undone by unlicensed individuals. That's okay. And non-therapists, that's okay. You could totally do that. You could have somebody that literally has no training whatsoever, but they're working at Planned Parenthood, and that's totally fine. They can counsel these women into these permanent decisions. And all they have to be is an attending healthcare professional, which is not defined in this amendment whatsoever. And for women, the last thing I want you to consider, there's no definition provided for what is meant by medically indicated to protect the life or physical or mental health of the pregnant individual. So I guess I want to pause very quickly. Lori, anything strike you about this so far that you wanted to?
Well, you mean what you've been saying? In particular, something that keeps going across my mind is this isn't just a statute. This is a constitutional amendment, which in and of itself, constitutional amendments are hard to get done. So once it's in the Constitution, it's the supreme law of Michigan. And they even won't let legislators correct it with any statutes or anything like that. So that by itself needs to be really concerning. And then just in general, I mean, a lot of the argument about abortion is avoid the coat hanger abortion and stuff like that. Based on what this is saying, coat hanger abortions can happen again because the person doesn't have, that's what I'm getting at least. The person doesn't have to be licensed. They can go in a back alley and get a coat hanger abortion.
Yeah.
I mean,
there would be no repercussions for someone to go to an abortion provider and or sterilization provider and receive that life-altering course of action, and the person that they're getting that from literally has no training. They could have no experience, but as long as they call themselves a healthcare professional, there you go. They can't be prosecuted.
The other thing that's not clear, and maybe it's kind of going over my head, what if somebody performs an abortion on somebody that doesn't want one? It doesn't clarify that at all. And so you got these pimps out there or whatnot, who knows? Somebody knocks somebody out and gives them an abortion. Is there any repercussions? Well, they can't make any regulations. They based on what I understand, at least, the legislators couldn't make any regulations about it, which is pretty general in the sense that then they couldn't regulate.
Well, so to answer the forced abortion issue, it does say Let me just get it a little bit closer. I'm not like my husband where I got to read it so far away. But okay, let's see here. So it does say the state shall not penalize, prosecute, or otherwise take adverse action against an individual based on their actual, potential, perceived, or alleged pregnancy outcomes. What BS is that? Including, but not limited to, miscarriage, stillbirth, or abortion. Or birth. Is that not a pregnancy outcome? Anyway. Nor shall the state penalize, prosecute, or otherwise take adverse action against someone for aiding or assisting a pregnant individual in exercising their right to reproductive freedom with their voluntary consent. So it does say that the state can't penalize somebody who's, if a pimp is driving the prostitute to the abortion clinic, for example. Well, if the prostitute in that example says, I don't consent to this, well, then the state could make a regulation or a criminal statute that says, okay, well, then in that case, the pimp can be prosecuted. But how likely is it in that scenario where it's an abortion clinic? Options are not being presented. This is not, here's abortion and here's adoption and here's, raising your child and here's, here's what your options are. It's, okay, so we're here to remove your clump of cells. Next. Number 23. Next. Like, that is not an environment that somebody's going to feel safe. Like, hey, I'm being forced to do this. This is not with my consent.
What about informed consent as well? I mean, we already know that's not happening very much anyways. So this just reiterates the lack of necessity. It's not going to require it. And again, I've heard stories of women that if I would have known, kind of mentality, they wouldn't have.
And that's, I guess, the leave it to Liberty Lori, who's going to use the common sense version of describing this to a third grader, is that it lacks informed consent. Now, I used about 167 words to tell you the same thing, that was my purpose in telling you that there's no regulations for these procedures allowed, no licensed physician is needed, no hospital or admitting privileges, no requirement to educate women on pregnancy in general, the fetal development stage of their unborn child, the option to see an ultrasound or hear the baby's heartbeat. This counseling can be done about abortion and sterilization by unlicensed individuals or non-therapists rather than by, these, well, as long as they consider themselves attending healthcare professionals. And so anyway, all of that goes into that, right? And let me I'm going to go ahead and read to you the part where, let's see here. Okay. So they're talking about that an individual's right, I should have just read the whole thing, but an individual's right to reproductive freedom shall not be denied, burdened, or infringed upon unless justified by a compelling state interest achieved by the least restrictive means. Now, they didn't think any of that was relevant during COVID, but what's interesting is that they define that compelling state interest, which has, I don't think, really ever been done before. But the compelling state interest, we heard that definition earlier. And let's see, I lost my place here. Okay, so then they say, notwithstanding the above, the state may regulate the provision of abortion aftercare. Abortion care after, I love that it's abortion care, the state may regulate the provision of abortion care after fetal viability, provided that in no circumstance the state prohibit an abortion that in the professional judgment of an attending healthcare professional the guy that came off the street last week as he applied for the opening at Planned Parenthood, for example, is medically indicated to protect the life or physical or mental health of the pregnant individual. So this is saying that even after a baby is viable, you can still have an abortion as long as this totally unqualified person, in any stretch of the imagination, literally no qualifications needed, that person can go and say to whomever, I guess, they don't really need to report it to anybody. So yeah, this individual is really stressed about this pregnancy, and they're nervous and they're alone, and it's in their best interest. Their mental health needs this abortion. So you've got a baby at, hey, how about 39? I'm 39. This is episode 39. We'll talk about a baby at 39 weeks. That baby's pretty damn viable. That baby can be aborted as long as that Planned Parenthood professional who's in the room with the woman determines that that woman's mental health would be better off by aborting this baby. Fun times. Okay. So, what does it mean for children? Well, number one, duh. Children are going to be murdered at will. Let me see if, and interesting how God does things, right? And so I just really cemented this topic as today's choice when I, last night, in between trying to prepare for my family coming down from Michigan to visit and preparing for a hurricane and homeschooling and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So anyway, it was later in the day. And so I, don't really have a chance to ever get on Facebook, but I just so happened to get on there for just a brief moment at 7:00 this morning, or whatever time it was, 6:30. And I happened to see a reel, and I don't watch reels, by the way. I hate them. Don't know why. I just do. I don't actually like watching any videos of any kind. But at any rate, this reel was right in front of me this morning, and I felt like I needed to share it with you. So this is, what does this mean for children? I have a new notification. Oh, I have to be ready to start a video in 44 minutes, just to let everybody know. That is fantastic. Did you know that Restore Freedom with Catherine Henry is now live? I'm glad that we can all see that. Oh my gosh, this is fabulous. Let's see if this is going to work. It went away. Hold on, guys. All right, guys. So that came across my radar this morning, and I thought, that's what it means for children. You take someone, a person at 39 weeks gestation, just for example. That's who we just saw, right? Well, keeping in mind that baby's birth, I want you to hear the words of this registered nurse and state rep who introduced the Mississippi bill that led to the case that overturned Roe v. Wade? It's not working, Lori. Lori, what'd I do? It worked earlier.
I don't know. It might be lagging a little bit.
It's just not moving. Dang it. Are you able to share your screen, Lori? You guys, this is 30 seconds of something that I think is meaningful enough that I want us to hear this.
I wouldn't even begin to know where my file is right now.
Did you put it in that Restore Freedom folder? I wonder if that's...
I don't know. I'm getting attacked by my animals.
Oh, it played earlier. I checked it out and everything. Okay. I think I might have a fix. Let's see if I got it done here. Lori, did you know that you text me a lot of things? I'm just trying to find it in here. Okay. Didn't you text it to me?
It's the... No, hold on. I think I can share it now.
Can you? Okay, good. I'll hide mine, see if that works. Sorry, guys, you're gonna want to hear this. If it wasn't worth your time, I wouldn't waste the effort. Trust me.
I'm still kind of learning this thing, so hold on.
Well, if
there we go.
The same. Okay.
So let me know if this isn't working.
You know, the 15-week deadline is she is just not going to make it.
Still, the reality of the unseen other couldn't be ignored. Senator Angela Burks-Hill took up that.
But when you take a baby and you have to crush the skull and take it apart piece by piece to get it out of a woman's uterus, and you have to catch the remnants in a suction cup and then go to the sink and count them out and make sure you have 2 hands, 2 feet, a skull, a spinal cord, that's just wrong. It's inhumane.
Debate time.
So, I don't know about you, but every time I hear that 30-second clip from that registered nurse who introduced this bill in the Mississippi legislature, and mind you, this is a woman that I also heard an interview on another podcast that was released recently, an episode that I'll probably be sharing with you on Friday. But she said, it started off that there was actually a miscarriage that she was handling or dealing with as a nurse many, many years ago. I want to say it was in the 70s. And it was for a baby, 15 weeks gestation. And she was, the miscarriage happened. It was just a spontaneous miscarriage. And all the fetal tissue was sent to the lab. I don't know why necessarily, but it was sent to the lab. And this woman describes how this baby actually stayed alive for 15 minutes. And she was with that baby when the baby was born, and she was with that baby when the baby took its last breath. And she saw that 15-week gestation human being and it left an impact on her. And then you think about her words that are not just meant to scare, but are meant to inform people of what is actually happening in these procedures. And she's envisioning a baby being born, much like the video that we showed you. At any rate, so the first thing is that babies are murdered at will. Okay, what else does it mean for children? Well, under Proposal 3, an 11-year-old child or a child of any age can get an abortion, sterilization, contraception, and related care without a parent's knowledge or consent. In fact, the Great Lakes Justice Center, whom I used to work with for years on a variety of constitutional issues, just like this one, in cases all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, we kind of parted ways when COVID started, and I took a more aggressive approach to defending the state and U.S. constitutions. But at any rate, the Great Lakes Justice Center has released some information, and they were also quoted in an Epoch Times article today talking about this petition. And they've identified or discussed the concern that even for children, what does this mean for children is the question we're answering about this petition. Well, they can procure a sex change without the parent's knowledge or consent. The Great Lakes Justice Center also points out to another concerning issue, that sex between an adult and a minor child will be protected by this amendment so long as the youngster consents to it. It's part of your reproductive freedom, right? It doesn't say it's only for adults. And in fact, if the sex between that minor child and this adult results in the minor child becoming pregnant, then this petition explicitly prohibits that man from being prosecuted in any way, shape, or form. In fact, it specifically says that the man can't have adverse reactions at all. So in other words, if he wanted to go after full custody of this child that he had with this other child, the courts cannot discriminate against him or have any adverse responses to that act. Is that not insane? It's so crazy to me. Lori, tell me, did I say that in plain English? Because I feel like I'm just spewing fire at this point and want to make sure it was an English fire. And you're muted, so.
I was worried that Neffy would bark again. She gets upset hearing about all this baby killing. Almost should have started with that. That's the most concerning part, because that opens this huge door of what is already a very serious problem, specifically pedophilia, and that, you know, we know that they want us to be accepting of that and anything that will help them. I mean, talk about free reign on running around. Oh man, I didn't necessarily realize that part of it, but that makes sense now that you say that. It's like, oh my goodness, it does do that. That we need to be concerned because, yeah.
Well, and the thing is, that's just the beginning, essentially. So what does this mean for men? Yes, let's put that on there, not to cover you up, Lori, but D. Faust on Facebook, thank you for succinctly putting it there. She says it legalizes pedophiles and has the puking emoji. I couldn't have said it better. It actually not just legalizes, it protects them, specifically protects them. So what does it mean for men? Well, it means that you have no rights as a father. Although this is touted as the reproductive freedom for all, you have no rights as a father. It's reproductive freedom for all except men. And what does it mean for families? Well, I could only imagine the number of marriages that would crumble with an unfettered ability of women to abort children or get on-demand sterilization. I mean, at least when the, dare I say, hurdles are a little higher, then there's typically more opportunity for open discussion, if not debate, within a marriage before something that permanent and scarring is done. But let's think of this. How do you protect and care for your child when an amendment like this allows them to walk into a medical office, and I'm going to say medical office loosely here, at any age and get an abortion, sterilization, contraception, related care like sex changes or anything without parental knowledge or consent? How do you protect your children in a world like that? How do you protect your children from pedophiles? If this amendment prohibits the prosecution and other adverse action against someone for aiding or assisting a pregnant individual in exercising their right to reproductive freedom with their voluntary consent. Here's an ice cream. Let's do this activity. I mean, seriously, as disturbing as it may be, that is what we're talking about.
And you know, to think that through, allowing them to be able to do that, already knowing that their whole counseling for even adult women is going to be basically encouraging it. Kids are easily swayed by parents. I mean, or adults in general. That, I mean, at least for me being raised up, I had to respect adults. So what they said, you know, was more authority than what a child would say. So any child going into that office is not going to think as much for themselves as maybe an adult woman potentially would.
Well, I think they
right
obviously
there, so that
think to themselves, you know, a child is just naturally speaking not able to think for themselves as well as a woman would. But even a woman, a grown woman in those situations is under, you know, stress, is
a lot of
under
mental,
all kinds of things that even if a woman in her normal state of mind would be able to fully reason and think that out, if somebody's scared, if somebody's fearful of something, if somebody is confused or whatever the situation is, that's going to impact. I mean, physically being pregnant impacts your ability to think clearly. I've been there.
Yeah.
I've done that. My children might say that it's still impacting my ability to think clearly, but I did see a question. So Rick Davies, hello, thank you for joining us on YouTube from your part of Michigan, assuming you're still there. He asks, how so except men? So basically, his question is, and I see Dee has a very good comment on Facebook, but to answer Rick on YouTube, so when I said that everyone has rights, it's reproductive freedom for all except men, what I mean by that is if you're a father, you have no rights to whether you want to parent. So the comment, let me go back to the comment. Yes. The Supreme Court's overturn of Roe v. Wade will not take away the rights and freedoms of people in Michigan to determine if and when they become a parent. No, but this amendment sure would, because if you're the father and abortion is this unregulated, is this readily accessible to people of any age and at any stage of pregnancy, how as a father would you be able to exercise rights to protect your child's life? As a father, how would you be able to protect your child from, once they're born and a pedophile is after them and courting them? How would you be able to protect your child from any kind of, receiving any of these sterilization or abortion services? As a father, you literally have zero rights. This whole thing is written to take you out of the equation, because who needs fathers? Who needs a traditional household? Who needs a family as God designed it to be? Not us in the United States. We know best. I almost said that with a straight face, until I got so disgusted I had to furrow my brow a little bit. But okay, so let me, yikes, I forgot where I was here. Okay, there we go. So what does this mean for society? Okay, so, well, the fact that there's going to be a whole bunch more children murdered, I guess that's an impact on society. But let's just look at it from a cold-hearted point of view, and that's the money. Remember when I said to you, these are all the provisions that are going to be impacted. We have they claim in this petition, it comes out and it says that the general appropriations bills power under the legislative branch is going to be impacted. Appropriations means spend money. That the Article 5, Section 18, where the executive power has executive branch has power over the budget, is going to be directly impacted by this. And Article 9, finance and taxation, payments from the state treasury. And Article 11, public officers and employment, classified civil service, appropriations. Hello, they're saying the state's going to pay for all of it. The state's going to pay for abortions on demand. The state's going to pay for sterilizations on demand and contraception and gender modification surgeries and whatever all this craziness is. Literally, they're coming out and saying, hey, we're going to change all these parts of the Constitution because the state's going to pay for it all.
Let's reiterate, for one, this is a constitutional amendment, not legislative bill. And for two, the state paying for it means everyone watching and everyone around them is paying for it. I mean, that's what, when we say the state's paying for it, that's the people are paying for it. The people in the state of Michigan are the state. Yes, we have people managing things, but it's us. It's coming out of our pocket. So we're going to pay to kill people, to kill babies.
So sterilize our children, traumatize our children, permanently affect and injure and harm our children and our women, wives, mothers, sisters, daughters. Okay, so how does this fit into the rest of the Michigan Constitution? And this is normally where I would spend the most of my time, but I'm going to try to breeze through this because we're already at 1:10. But we've also talked about these issues before, at least in the context of what does abortion in general look like in the context of the Constitution. But what I want you to do, if you can see my screen at all, and I'm going to make us tinier here. If you can see my screen, I'm going to see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Maybe, kind of. All right. For those of you who can see the screen because you're watching it, great. If you're on a small device and can't see the small print, or if you're catching this being restreamed through our podcasting platforms, and so it's just audio for you, don't worry. This information will be shared in our Constitution segment recap on Thursday, so you'll be able to see it for yourself with your own eyes. And I'm asking you to do so. I'm encouraging you to do so all of this really can sink in. But what I did is I took all of the list of the amendments, the list that this proposed amendment says that it's going to impact all the parts of the Michigan Constitution that they're saying it will change, those are in black. And then ones that they did not so honestly step forward and say, hey, by the way, it's going to change this too, I put those in teal. Okay. So they acknowledge, although they don't honestly and forthcomingly say how, they acknowledge that this Declaration of Rights is going to, this new right that they're adding is going to modify Section 2, equal protection under the law. Well, yeah. Clearly, fathers have no protection under the law. Clearly, unborn children have no protection under the law. If the law has to follow these ridiculous provisions outlined in this proposed amendment. So that's one they acknowledge, although not fully detailing how. But then let's look at Section 4, freedom of worship and religious belief. So that's where Dee on Facebook hit the nail on the head. She said, I see so many religious rights violations. Exactly. So you don't have the right to raise your children in the religious upbringing you see fit. You don't have the right to, as a husband, you don't have the right to make sure that you and your spouse are at least having the conversation about this or consulting with your not only your medical providers, but your spiritual providers, your spiritual leaders, your pastor or your priest or whomever. You just absolutely have like religious beliefs and freedom of worship is out the window with this. If you can kill someone just because you feel like it, and the state can do nothing to stop that murder from happening, I would think that's a pretty good indicator that freedom of worship, like of God that created all life and says don't kill anyone, but that's kind of out the window. Section 11, unreasonable searches and seizures. Basically, that the concept of we have a right to privacy from the government, and that means in parenting. So they're talking about it in terms of, well, I have a right to privacy, so I can murder my unborn child if I want to. Well, okay, but what about unreasonable intrusion upon the lives of families when any average American family, let alone one in Michigan, is going to say, this is absurd if you think I can't protect my child from a pedophile trying to get my child pregnant, or I can't protect my child from an unneeded, unnecessary, sound medical procedure being done by unlicensed providers. Sterilization, abortion, contraception, whatever, that you can't protect your children in your own home. The way you bring your children up is now just like the state's opened that up. It's taken off those doors of privacy around your family. What about Section 17, due process of law? The simple facts that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And we've talked about this in episodes prior, but where is that unborn baby getting due process of law before their life is being ended? What due process is a father receiving before their rights are being completely stripped out of the whole situation? Absolutely none. Literally, there is no procedure whatsoever identified in this petition for a father to protect his already born child or his unborn child in these situations. Section 23, unenumerated rights. That's my favorite one. We talk about it every week. And this petition comes out and says, oh, by the way, our rights, our new right, it says, establish new individual right to reproductive freedom. That establishing that new right is going to modify, in fact, their words, alter or abrogate, which means erase or diminish, the rights that are given to you by God that are unenumerated. It's going to change that. And Article 1, Section 27, human embryo and embryonic stem cell research. We have no clue what their thoughts are about this, but let your imagination run wild, because they are saying these 321 words are going to change, diminish, delete, whatever, any restrictions or anything, any regulations about the use of human embryos or embryonic stem cell research. And of course, they're saying that general government is going to be impacted because any common law or statutes in place are going to be wiped out. I mean, literally, not just the abortion statute that everybody thinks about with the governor's lawsuit, but no, we're talking about a huge plethora of statutes that are going to be wiped out because they're geared towards putting pedophiles in prison, or because they're protecting children from unnecessary medical procedures without parental consent, or whatever, a wide variety of things out the window. Legislative branch, the legislative power, the actual legislative power is being altered or abrogated by this. The ability to set general appropriations bills. In other words, they're saying, legislature, you no longer have the ability to have the power of the purse strings, right? You no longer, if this is passed, you no longer will be able to say, we're not going to fund abortion. Because you have to fund abortion and sterilization and everything else that they're claiming is covered by this amendment. They're also acknowledging Section 51. That should be something that strikes a little bit of a bell for you. Public health and general welfare. Article 4, Section 51 of the Michigan Constitution is this simple. It's this few of words. The public health and general welfare of the people of the state are hereby declared to be matters of primary public concern. The legislature shall pass suitable laws for the protection and promotion of the public health. That's all that it says. And they're saying this abrogates that. So let's think about, what does that really mean, like in the realistic, sense of it? Well, let's keep in mind that the same people arguing the hardest for the passage of this constitutional amendment are the same ones that screamed the loudest about COVID regulations, right? Enforcing COVID regulations. So let's think about this in context with what I just said. Article 4, Section 51, public health and general welfare. This petition is acknowledging it's going to change this. It's going to abrogate this two-sentence part of our state constitution, the same part the governor used to enforce mask mandates and vaccines and all kinds of other things. This is what I want you to think about. You can't, and these people are okay with this, you can't get a pap smear without a mask. If you're not wearing a mask, they will deny you getting a pap smear. That's for your reproductive health. You can be denied surgical treatment to remove uterine cancer if you don't have the COVID vaccine. But you can get sterilization, abortion, gender-changing surgery, etc., without any protective regulations whatsoever. I'm going to say that all together one more time because I really want you to let that sink in. And I want you to tell 5 people today about that. With this amendment, not only is pedophilia going to be constitutionally protected, not only can children go in and get abortions, sterilizations, contraceptives, or gender-changing surgeries without even so much as parental knowledge, let alone consent. Not only can you murder unborn children, even all the way through 39, 40 weeks of gestation if it's too much stress on a woman to allow the baby to survive. But with this, you can't get a pap smear without a mask, or surgical treatment to remove uterine cancer without having the COVID vaccine. That's something they'd be okay with. But you can get sterilization, abortion, gender-changing surgery without any protective regulations whatsoever, without even having a licensed provider performing that surgery. At any rate, not even done with this. Go ahead, Lori.
That should be really scary for people. I mean, you're preaching it basically, but I just want to re-emphasize how scary that is, what it's going to do in a much broader scale after, if it were to pass, what would happen after change so much. And they're already rough in Michigan as it is. Just people need to take this seriously and don't shut up about it. Keep telling people about it. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors that we got 10 million people, granted not all of them can vote. We need to get the word out because this cannot have any chance of passing. It's not safe at all, especially not safe for our children.
So Article 5, Executive Branch. Section 1, they're saying it's changing the executive power. Not how, they're not telling us how. They're saying it's changing the ability of the executive branch to have power over the budget. They're saying it's changing judicial powers and the right in the Constitution to administrative action review, but not telling us how. They also jumped to Article 8, the section in the Michigan Constitution on education, and they're saying, well, this is going to change the parts of the Michigan Constitution that simply identify that there's going to be controlling boards, Board of Regents, Board of Trustees, what have you, for the University of Michigan, Michigan State University, Wayne State University, other institutions of higher education, and community and junior colleges. Yet it doesn't say how. So I think that means there's going to be some appropriations made that are forcing these procedures to be made with those funds from the public universities, which means your tax dollars again. But also, I would say this is probably leading up to the counseling and steering into these abortion and sterilization and contraceptive procedures. But the funny thing is that it's not really funny, it's quite sad, but they skipped right on over what Dee brought up earlier on Facebook. They skipped over the huge impact it's going to have on Article 8, Section 1, which says religion, morality, and knowledge are necessary to good government and the happiness of mankind. They don't mention that change or that implication, that abrogation. And don't forget, Article 9, finance and taxation, they come out and say that finance and taxation will be impacted because payments from the state treasury will be seen here. And of course, appropriations and whatnot from public officers and employment section, Article 11 of the Michigan Constitution. But let's get to the question at hand. If it's adopted into the Michigan Constitution, would it be enforceable? Does this proposal, would this changed language, would these 321 words conflict with the U.S. Constitution? The answer is unequivocally yes. Proposal 3 is entirely unconstitutional, and I went over several different ways in today's episode so far, but you could see a full analysis on the issue if you actually go look at the document we shared with week 26's episode. So I will have a link to that available in the document I will share with you on Thursday during our Constitution segment recap. It'll probably also make it into the official Friday's Freedom Fighting Tools. But so now you know the facts before voting in November. And so I'm going to ask you guys, and I want you all to pipe up on your various social media platforms, whether you're watching on Twitch or Rumble, YouTube, whatever, you name it. The Tuesday true or false question that I posed was under Proposal 3, which is an amendment to change the Michigan Constitution that will be on the ballot this November. An 11-year-old child or a child of any age, could they get an abortion, sterilization, contraception, or related care without a parent's knowledge or consent? Well, the answer will be posted on our social media tonight at 10, of course. But as you can see on our screen, or as you've heard me talk about already, the answer is absolutely true. This is unfortunately true. This craziness is not constitutional, but if it's dumped into the Michigan Constitution, the cowards that thought they, proclaimed they had no power to stop the unconstitutional crap happening in 2020 and 2021 in Michigan are going to be the same people that say, oh, well, we have to enforce all of this unconstitutional garbage that we have now. So at any rate, please spread the word about that. Let's see, I wanted to quickly show you the title from the article that I mentioned earlier today. Elderly woman shot while campaigning against pro-abortion ballot proposal in Michigan. And that's from Lake Odessa, Michigan. And the article is from today. And I want to encourage you to listen to that 30-second audio from another podcast that I played earlier today. And like I said, to also take a look at the document we released for week 26 of Restore Freedom Weekly, where we talked about those were recent cases from the U.S. Supreme Court. So it was talking about the Second Amendment gun rights cases, religious liberty, and the right to life case. And so you can find a lot of this information and the specific constitutional provisions and the different topics kind of laid out here, and different parts of the Constitution cited a little bit more in detail on some of those issues. But
I wanted to chime in. Don't let that story about the elderly lady scare you from going out. Just bring a buddy. And in fact, don't stop spreading the word. Just, we got to be in this together more and more than just going at it alone.
I share that with you to show the craziness and the passion, the efforts the left is willing to go to stop the truth from getting out there, not to scare you, but to tell you it's your time to rise up. It's your time to step up and be willing to lay it all on the line, because this is a level of evil and awful and horrible that we have not ever yet seen in the United States. And it will completely and forever change not only the state of Michigan, but all of the states, because this is an evil that I believe it was the Liberty Cause mentioned earlier.
Open the door.
The sign of the end times. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that you see right before the fall of a civilization. This has so much jam-packed into it. It is disgusting beyond belief that they allowed all of the actual technical errors of this petition not even to stop this petition from ending up on the ballot in November. So
what's the point of having rules on how a petition needs to be written if you're not going to enforce them?
Well, they do enforce them. They enforce them against some people and some petitions,
right,
but not others. So the point is to let evil prevail as best as possible. And what is the saying? The best way for evil to prevail is for good men to stand by and do nothing while seeing it happen. So this is your time to stand up and share the information. My goal when I was talking with Lori about this for weeks now, but I remember specifically telling her a week ago last Monday, I said, Lori, what I really need to do when I go over these 3 petitions that are on the ballot in Michigan this November, what I really need to do is give people a takeaway that is like a 3 a 3-part simple thing that they could say, well, there's this, there's this, there's this, and they could take that out into a conversation if they bump into a neighbor on the sidewalk, if they're happen to talk to somebody, a coworker at the water cooler, if they happen to, in fact, maybe pray about it at the flagpole. I believe that see you or meet you at the flagpole is tomorrow, a day of prayer nationwide. So at any rate, this opportunity, though, is something that we cannot miss. We have to get the information out there. Unfortunately, it took me a little bit more than, the 3 simple points, but I will boil it down, obviously, quite a bit for Thursday's Constitution segment recap. But before I go into that, I guess let me quickly just mention something here. I wanted to, where was it? Okay, so the first thing I wanted to say is getting back to I think it was the Reproductive Freedom for All's website about the petition itself. Proposal 3 is a common sense middle ground solution to restore our rights under Roe. Yes on 3. This thing goes far beyond anything that was even considered in the Roe v. Wade opinion. Never would these things have even crossed the minds of the justices that were involved in the decision that later became as, the Roe v. Wade case. But it's common sense to allow pedophilia and protect the pedophiles. It's common sense to allow your small child to be, well, not only murdered by the abortion side of it, but to be able to walk into, air quotes here for those who are listening only and not watching, a medical provider who is not required to have any training or experience whatsoever. They're allowed to walk into one of these people's establishments and receive a permanently altering course of treatment, an abortion or sterilization or contraception or gender changing surgery. They can have all of that without even parental knowledge. And this is common sense. And this is middle ground. This is the middle ground solution. Let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, please take this on as your task, because in a way, I guess this is the middle ground. Why? Well, I'm going to tell you that abortion statute in Mississippi that led to the Dobbs case, although good things came out of it, I listened to the genesis of it. I listened to the individuals that were behind not only the lawsuit, the attorneys and the process that went into that. I listened to the people talking about their frame of mind, the legislators and the lobbyists for life that went into putting this bill together in Mississippi. And I'll tell you what, I'm honestly disgusted. I'm disgusted because they already had an abortion ban after 20 weeks, and now this one just brought it down to 15. When are people going to stand up and say, I don't care what the Supreme Court is going to do. I don't care what the governor is going to sign. I don't care. I'm a senator. I'm a state rep. I'm, in U.S. Congress, and I'm going to do what I know is the constitutional thing to do. I'm going to do what God wants me to do. And I'm truly going to fight for life, period, because no person, born or unborn, can just be simply murdered at whim. When are we going to stand up and fight for that? Why are we going to accept these little tiny wins along the way and say, oh, okay, well, in this state, 15 weeks, I'll tell you what, do you know that the very people that settled on that 15-week mark are the same people that discussed reasons why? And one of them was acknowledging that if you go if you end up having an abortion anytime after 8 weeks, your risk for complications and long-term health issues or even death because of the abortion after 8 weeks, those complication statistics go up by, I think it was 2,300%. this in the interests of women. And I heard the Democrat side of this argument that was being debated in the House of Representatives in Mississippi as this bill that became the core of the Dobbs case, as it was being debated in the House and as it was being debated in the Senate. And I'll tell you, when I hear the words of a Democrat legislator bringing up the sad state of affairs that at that point in time, the Mississippi adoption system had 6,000 children still waiting to be adopted. And so her argument is, okay, well, you can't say that if somebody, if a pregnant woman doesn't want this unborn child, somebody else will, because that's what one of the bill sponsors had said. She's like, well, no, you can't say that. What about the 6,000 children that are already there where you're saying people want them, but people aren't taking them home and adopting them? And I'm going to say back to that. So you're saying those 6,000 children are better off dead? Literally, that is what they're saying.
The reality is what are they doing to make sure those kids get adopted? I would have to think, the first thought comes to mind is what tight restrictions are there on adoption that is making it difficult and lacking the desire to adopt? Is it really that they're not adoptable, or is it that the state is preventing them for one reason or another from being adopted?
Exactly. There's all those considerations, but let's not forget too, it's a very slippery slope, because here we're saying, okay, these Democrat legislators are saying and publicly debated that basically abortion is justifiable and is needed because for unwanted babies, they're just going to end up in the state's foster care system, which is already overloaded, and all these children that are not wanted. And so their lives are terrible because they're not being adopted. And so if we're saying it's okay then, and it's preferable to kill those babies in utero, even if they can survive outside of the womb, but mind you, it's okay to kill those babies in utero because nobody wants them nobody might want them when they reach the outside world, so to speak. Then how is it not nothing but a tiny step to then say, okay, well, what about those 6,000 children currently in the Mississippi foster care system? If we're going to say, well, geez, if a child has been in the foster care system for more than 3 months and no one has adopted them, clearly no one wants them, should they be murdered too? I mean, I don't see why not. If we're saying we can murder them if they're, 9 months in utero, and if somebody put an adoption plan in place from day one, basically, let's just say at 4 weeks. So there's 8 months where we're going to see if there's somebody lining up to adopt this baby. Well, so then in 8 months, when you've been in the foster care system as a child, as a 7-year-old child, as an 11-year-old child, as a 14-year-old child, if you've been in the foster care system for 8 months and no one has adopted you, the state gets to then label you as unwanted and murder you? I don't know. So a lot we went over today, a lot longer than I thought I would go. Well, a lot longer than I wanted to go in today's discussion, considering the lengthy discussions on this topic that we've had before. But remember to come back tomorrow for our Wednesday Way to Get Involved challenge. It will be a post on all of our social media. And so if you're just listening to this later on a podcasting platform, make sure to go check out any of our social media platforms where we do postings, and you'll be able to see what the Wednesday Way to Get Involved challenge will be. And it's urgent. I don't care what state you're in. I need you to participate. We all need you to participate in this week's Way to Get Involved challenge, which will be tomorrow on Wednesday. Also, like I mentioned, our Thursday Constitution segment recap will be done as a live stream. 10 minutes or less is the goal. Last week, it ended up being 2 10-minute segments. My bad. But there was a lot of information. This week, I'm not going to do a full in-depth, discussion of each of the naming the segments, what I will do is provide the at least the two documents that I've prepared for you, one this week in episode 39 and the other one from episode 26, that go over the different constitutional provisions involved and discussed. But then I'm just going to essentially give you the Cliff Notes version in that Constitution segment recap, hopefully keeping it to 10 minutes or less, which will then hopefully best prepare you to get out there and spread the truth about what this monstrosity of a constitutional amendment would really do. Then please do make sure to check out our Restore Freedom goodie segment that we'll put out on Saturday. I forgot what day of the week we normally do that. It's very important that you help us to spread the word, because everything that we do is all by donation. So we don't have funds for big radio ads nationwide, or even in the states of Michigan and Florida, where we have the majority of our supporters at this point. So if you can drive around with a Restore Freedom car magnet or sticker, or put the window decal in your business, on your front door of your business, or download the Constitution app, or have the Restore Freedom pop socket, like this one that's upside down for you guys, but the Restore Freedom pop socket available, any of those, it helps us spread the word, and it helps keep our message going. But what we want to do too is keep you alert to not only remembering that we have a biblical insight that will be shared as a post on our social media on Sunday, so you can get that reminder of what God's word on this topic would be, but we want to remind you that this show, that this work, the legal work, the educational work, the advocacy work, none of it is possible without the support, the prayers, the emotional support, the camaraderie, but certainly the financial support of people like you. Even if you only have $5 to spare that you could help us with as a one-time donation, that is $5 more towards making this all happen. And we'll have some sponsorship opportunities available soon, so that we can hopefully keep the weekly newsletter going, keep the constitutional segment recaps going, keep the preview on Monday going, keep the whole show going, and engaging you every week on important topics of the Constitution and government in general. With that being said, Lori, did you have any last words for us today?
Nope, you said it all.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone who's joining us live today on Twitter, Twitch, LinkedIn, YouTube, Rumble,
DLive, Twitch.
Twitch. And thank you so much for all of you watching on those platforms later, or by listening to us on your favorite podcasting platform. We appreciate your support and look forward to touching base with you on the rest of our segments later on this week. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day.